scripture, the epistle reading has really leapt out this week for me. And not that I'm dodging, let's just be honest. We've been talking about Jesus, the bread of life, for 4 weeks. Okay, I think we got it by now, right? Okay. Plus, it's middle of summer, and John, theologically, is such a deep dive. It's too hot outside. The epistle, Paul's letter to the Ephesians, has really grabbed me this week, partly because what we're about to do in about 10 minutes, the drill, the training drill, and this is why. If you read Ephesians from Eugene Peterson's translation, The Message, he says these words for Ephesians chapter 5, 15 to 20. Eugene Peterson says to you all, including me, so watch your step. Use your head and make the most of every chance you get. These are desperate times. Don't live carelessly, unthinkingly, but make sure you understand what the Master wants. Don't drink too much wine, that cheapens your life. Drink the Spirit of God, huge draughts of Him. Sing hymns instead of drinking songs. Sing songs from your heart to Christ. Sing praises over everything and any excuse for a song to God the Father in the name of our Master, Jesus Christ. Amen. So the first part about these are desperate times. Use your head. Make the most of every chance you get. The New Revised Standard Version, of course, says, be careful then how you live, not as unwise people, but as wise. That's why we're doing the training. We're doing the training because we're not burying our heads in the sand. As much as we like to deny the world we live in, it's a world filled with violence. It's a world filled with violence. And the only way to come against that is what he goes on and says here. Both Paul and then Brother Eugene in his translation. The only way to come against the fear and trepidation and the nightly news stories that break every night is to sing songs of praise. Oh, Lord have mercy. When we come into this church every Sunday, whether it's 8:30 in the morning, we sing that great blue hymnal that you got. We have a blue hymnal, yes. We're going to go back to 2 services, even though the 10 o'clock has been great. We're going to get back to singing some of those, bread of heaven, feed me now and evermore. Feed me now and evermore. I start singing that, and all of my worries just kind of go away, because I'm singing songs of praise. Right there, he said, sing spiritual songs, sing hymns, give thanks to God in everything you do. When I'm down, I listen to music. And there was a woman this week who died. Oh. There's a woman this week who died, who sang her heart out to Jesus. Some of what I'm about to say, I borrowed from an obituary that was written in the Washington Post by a man named David Moranis. I wrestled with, why are you going to talk about Aretha Franklin? Because I'm going to talk about Aretha Franklin. We lost a great human being this week. This day to talk. There was only one Aretha. But in her case, the first name recognition evoked so much more than pop celebrity. Aretha was not a manufactured image like many of today's performers, but a sound. A supernaturally wondrous sound from this natural woman who made us all feel so alive. If the human voice is the most glorious instrument, Aretha Franklin, who died on Thursday at age 76, was the proof. Her sound came from Detroit, from the African American church, from the pulpit incantations of her father, from the blues, from jazz, from soul, from the great migration from southern fields to northern cities, and yet exuberantly from her own inimitable genius. When Rolling Stone listed her as as its top 100 performers of all time. Franklin was the first woman on the list, 9th overall. But none of the men in front of her, from the Beatles to Bob Dylan to Chuck Berry, not even Elvis Presley, possessed voices with her depth and her power and her beauty. To sing along with Franklin, as millions of listeners did, whenever they heard her, offered a chance for the soul to explode with a range of human emotions. Her songs even inspired legions of men to sing rapturously about female empowerment. No one could sing like her, but everyone could sing in the choir at the church of Aretha. The first name was enough, but the last name explained her. Franklin was just not another name in Detroit. The Queen of Soul arose from the city's black church royalty. Her father, the Reverend Clarence LaVaughn Franklin, was once such a popular preacher that hundreds of non-observant Sunday supplicants would gather outside his New Bethel Baptist Church on warm summer days and listen to his sermons over loudspeakers that echoed down Hastings Street. His renown as the man with the million-dollar voice extended far beyond Detroit. His sermons were broadcast on radio and recorded by the JVB record label in Detroit and Chess Records in Chicago. And several times a year he would take his act on the road, a circuit-riding preacher who filled arenas and large churches throughout the South. Audiences were so familiar with Franklin's sermons that they would call out requests the way people do at concerts. Play, they would say, play the eagle stirreth in his nest, someone would shout. And CL, as Pastor Franklin was referred to, CL was the marquee attraction in the traveling road show that also featured the Reverend's singing daughters, Irma, Carolyn, and Aretha. There was no mother along. She had left for Buffalo, New York when they were young and died at 34. And I want to just add a little editorial note here. Aretha's mother has been painted as leaving the family in the lurch, so to speak, just taking off. Nothing could be farther from the truth. For various personal family reasons, she did leave the family and went back to Buffalo, but Aretha would go in the summertime to visit her mother, so the mother was still present in her life. I want to give her mother. Reverend Franklin was a people's preacher and was also the definition of flamboyance. His church attracted travelers and followers from the meanest streets along with the black elite. He was a civil rights activist who invited his old friend, the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., to Detroit for a rally in 1963, June of 63, where King delivered a variation of his I Have a Dream speech months before his famous March on Washington. And long before Aretha was singing about her pink Cadillac on the freeway of love, he and his children lived in a grand old house on Oakland Avenue. William Robinson, who of course later became known as Smokey Robinson, was the best friend of Aretha's brother Cecil, or as they say in England, Cecil. And remember being floored when he visited Cecil's house and saw all the oil paintings, the silk curtains, the mahogany cabinets, ornate objects of silver and gold. But what impressed him more was one of Cecil's little sisters, Aretha, a cutie pie, he recalled, who as a 3-year-old sat down at her father's baby grand piano and played flawlessly. She taught herself by ear how to play the piano. The singing talent that emerged from Detroit from the late 50s to the late 60s was breathtaking, and almost all of it fell into the ambit of Berry Gordy Jr. and, of course, Motown Records. Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, Mary Wells, the Supremes, Martha and the Vandellas, the Temptations, the Four Tops, Marvin Gaye, and who could forget Stevie Wonder. But Aretha's sound soared above them all. She was never part of Motown. Her father thought Berry Gordy Jr. was too small town. and he directed her toward the Columbia and then Atlantic record label. It took her longer to catch on than many Motown stars, but once the public found her sound, she gained not only, you know it's coming, R-E-S-P-C-T, she gained not only respect, but also a singular place in the music pantheon. She sang for popes. Not too long ago, Francis was in her audience. She sang for presidents, but she was also, like her father, a people's preacher. With Aretha Franklin's passing, time compresses and one can flash from the image of the little girl at her daddy's baby grand piano to the scene nearly 3 years ago when the Queen of Soul blew the roof off the Kennedy Center. You have not seen this. When she came out and took a seat, they were honoring Carole King. She came out and took a seat at the grand piano, and she belted out a heartfelt rendition of "You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman." I commend that little clip to you. It was on the chopping block with the one I'm about to show you in about 30 seconds, and it fell on the edit room floor. But now I'm feeling guilty. I didn't show the "You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman," so that's your homework. You got to go cue that up. The Kennedy Center, "You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman." She was singing not only for Carole King. Our president at the time was, of course, Barack Obama, and his wife Michelle was by his side. And she sang not only for them, but she sang not only for Detroit that night, but this David Moranis, who I'm still reading his words, said that night she sang for the world. People die, but the voice of a great singer lives forever. Sing songs from your heart to Christ, Paul writes. Sing praises over everything. And any excuse for a song to God the Father, in the name of our Master, Jesus Christ. Gary, can you cue up the little gift? I hope it's a gift. It is a gift. Oh, Aretha, if I could have ever heard you live, I would have thought I died and gone to heaven. But this is as close as we're going to get this morning. So let's cut the lights in the back, and I'm going to cut the lights over here. Let you guys settle in and listen to these.
In the memory.
We gotta heed the woman that we just heard. That power only comes from God. That respect that she taught in a time in our nation's history when we're there again. We gotta have respect. We gotta have respect for each other. We gotta have respect for each other. And guess what? It's up to us. The churches and the synagogues and the mosques, people of faith, they're the only ones equipped because of God the Creator who imbues all of us with His spark, with her spark. So her funeral is coming up. Dare say it should be required viewing, especially for you kids. Tell your mom and dad you want Aretha Franklin's funeral taped, so when you get off school or football practice, I want you lads, I want you young people to watch that funeral and to get an understanding of what she is one of the great saints of America. Thank you for listening to that, and for now, Ron Miller, to hell of a transition.